Hey everybody, this is Kevin Purcell with the Theotek Podcast. We're getting started this morning like we do every Friday morning, talking about church and Bible tech, thus the name Theotek. And today we're down one. Antoine couldn't join us. Maybe he'll hit us up later on. But this morning we've got our favorite two of our favorite three. I don't know what I'm going with that, but anyway, we have four favorite guys who get on this show. It's all four of us. Anyway, this is Wes Allen. Wes, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really well, thanks, Kev.
Good. And Rick Mansfield. How are you, Rick?
I'm doing great. It's like I tell my mother-in-law. I tell her that you're my favorite, and I tell her that I'm her favorite son-in-law, but I'm her only son-in-law. So.
You know, I got in trouble at my last church one time because I just happened to say, I was kidding, but I said, she's one of our favorite people, and someone else in the church, got upset saying, well, you shouldn't have favorites, you're the preacher. And I was like, well, you're one of my favorite people too.
Right.
And she said, but you shouldn't have favorites. She got all mad at me. But anyway, this morning we're glad to have all of you listening and watching, and if you're here with us at a later date, we're glad that you've come to join in. Of course, we always make it available on YouTube and on the audio available at iTunes and on Stitcher and your favorite podcast app of any kind. And we'll do that every week. We just made last week's available yesterday, so go check that out. Theotek.com is the place to find it, or at kevinpurcell.org. But this morning what we wanted to talk about is a couple of us got some new toys, and we thought we'd share our experience with the new Microsoft Surface 3. And Rick is actually doing this podcast from his Surface 3 using the camera on it. And you look pretty good. Looks like it's handling well. What do you think of it so far?
Good. Yeah, I wanted to really kind of run it through its paces. It's a very good machine. It's solidly built. The Surface and the Surface Pro 3, Pro 3, these are really premium devices, I believe. Even though like the Surface 3 is a lesser price device, it's still expensive. I did not pay the full price for it, but if someone were to get the same model that I did, the 128 gigabyte storage with 4 gigabytes of RAM, plus a keyboard, plus a pen, that's about $778. And you can get a really decent Windows laptop for $778 as well, and that probably has a more powerful processor. These have one of the newer Atom processors, and so it really has performed surprisingly well, with one exception, which I'll let you you might want to talk about that in a minute. There's only really been one program that's kind of really run pretty slowly on it, but for instance, running Accordance runs great on it. It's a great program for certain Bible software programs, and like I said, the design is solid. It feels like a very quality product. The keyboard, I had the original Surface Pro, and actually I had the original Surface RT as well. The keyboard on this is an evolution of that keyboard that originally came with it, and this is more like the type cover, not the touch cover. These newer ones, like the Surface Pro 3, bend back. You can put this fold back up. It connects with a magnet so that your keyboard's at a slight angle. That makes it a little bit bouncy when I type on it. It works just as fine if I lay it flat, and it's the keyboard's a little bit louder than what I would like. But overall, I can type really fast on it because it's got very little travel with the keys. Comes with the pen that I ordered or that came with it is red, because the keyboard that I ordered was red, so that matches, and it's
clear about that, Rick. Before you go on too far,
sure.
If someone orders it in a normal fashion, like they get it from Best Buy or they get it on Microsoft Online, that pen and the type cover do not come with it, right?
Yes, and that's I think one of the negatives of the Surface line, that I really think for the price they should come with the keyboard. And of course, the Surface Pro 3 comes with a pen. You still have to order the keyboard separate. But that's why I said, for this same configuration, and again, I didn't buy it. I got a special deal, but I didn't pay this full price. But it would cost you for the Surface 3 plus the keyboard, plus the pen, you're talking $778 before tax. And so the Surface 3 by itself, this is the $599 one. There is a $499 one that's only 64 gigabytes of storage with, I think it's 2 gigabytes of RAM. And I don't know that I would recommend that, mainly because of the RAM under any real circumstance. Fortunately, both of them have micro SD storage, so you can put up to 128 gigabytes of extra storage in those, and that will help a lot. But I think the RAM is going to cause people problems if they get that lower end model.
And the storage will too, because so much is being taken up by a Windows recovery partition. And
that's true. And
it's a tablet, but it's not a tablet. I mean, that's the thing that people don't quite understand about the Surface. So.
And you know, when I had the past two, like I said, I had the RT and I also had the original Surface Pro. I actually took that partition off of those to gain more space on the drive. But it becomes a problem when you're selling them. You know, you've got to tell this up front that okay, I've got the recovery on some USB thumb drives, and some people don't want to even fool with that, and I understand that, so I'm going to leave it on this device.
Can you still make like an install DVD? And just use an external DVD drive to do the install?
Well, I mean, I don't know about a DVD, but I guess you probably could. But you can certainly make one with a flash drive. You know, you can play.
Right.
That's what I've done in the past.
There you go.
It's not built into the system though. Making a flash drive.
What's that?
Making a flash drive. There's not like a program on the tablet.
No, there is. There is. It's in. It's because I did it from the control panel on the previous ones.
Okay, well that's different. On this Surface, you did that?
No, not on my current one, but on the previous ones I did that.
Yeah, I don't think they do that anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, you may be right. I haven't tried it with this one.
I could be wrong as well, but I don't think they do that anymore. Now, what we're looking at is these are my raw pictures. I have unedited pictures of that I've taken for my own personal product shot. Of course, there is me putting the Surface on top of my MacBook sort of as a joke. But I think I would agree with you in your estimation that this is a premium machine, and people will be confused by this because a premium machine with a low-powered processor,
right.
There's like a mental disjunct. I don't know what the word I'm trying to think of, but you know those don't seem to go together. But what you're really getting is you're paying a little extra because, you know, like if you go out and get an Atom-based computer with 4 gigs of RAM and 128 gig processor, you're probably going to pay $400 maybe, right?
Right.
Just a laptop. Add a touchscreen to it, that might bump it up to $450 or $500. Well, this thing is $600 without the keyboard and without the pen. So add the pen. I'm talking about the 4 gig 128 one that people really would. So add that to, you know, that makes it $730 with the keyboard, $780 with the pen. If you wanted, you could get something like the Microsoft mobile Bluetooth keyboard, which is only $80, or even a cheaper keyboard than that, you know, for $30. You could get just a regular stylus for it, but you'll lose a lot in that. So I think it is a little bit disingenuous for Microsoft to say it starts at $500, and that's what everybody hears and thinks. Because that's a huge price point, because that's where the iPad is.
Yeah.
They're trying to compete with the iPad. This doesn't compete well with just the iPad. If all you want is a tablet, go get an iPad.
Yeah, I think it's a better laptop replacement than a tablet replacement.
Well,
and that
but
was my question, because
if all you want is a laptop, this isn't your game either. Okay, honestly, you can get a better laptop. For $500 than this.
What's valuable about
the tab?
Hang on, guys. Hang on. We're talking over each other. You can get a better laptop than this. Maybe it's not the same premium quality, but it's going to work just as well and last just as long. And so your bang for your buck is not going to be any better. What this is, I'm not replacing a laptop, nor am I replacing an iPad. I'm replacing both. What you're buying is you're buying the new MacBook because it's got the lower powered processor too, and limited storage. So you're buying that, and you're buying the iPad, but you're buying it in one device. And so over those two items, you are saving a ton of money. Even if you consider, okay, the MacBook, maybe that's a special thing because of the new keyboard, the new touchpad, the Retina display. But if you're replacing just an average Windows computer, laptop, and an average Android tablet, you're still saving a lot of money getting this. And so that's why I would say, yeah, it's worth it if you don't have really intense needs, or, sorry, Logos, if you don't run Logos Bible software, then this is a great option.
Yeah.
I installed
Logos,
and it's not a very good experience running it. It works a little bit better than it did at first. I think I was indexing a bunch of times and I didn't really realize it, and I was judging it based on that. Logos, while it's indexing, is a terrible experience no matter what computer you use it on.
Took
on
36
my MacBook
hours.
Pro, yeah. There's a trick that you can find in the forums for installing. If you have a previous install of it on another computer, you can copy over a lot of the files onto the new computer without having to download everything, and it won't index everything. It'll only index part of it, but it still is going to index some. And for whatever that period of time, the lower the processor power, the slower the index. And the indexing is incredibly processor intensive. And I don't know why that is, but other programs don't seem to have that problem, and they can still search just as quickly as Logos can. But I don't want to say anything about why that's the truth on Logos and not on other Bible programs. But I know why it's so much slower. Just the general interface is so much slower because they're building their GUI, the graphical user interface. What the person sees is not built using the built-in stuff of your operating system. It's built on top of the operating system using another technology. And so you're not just running Mac or you're not just running Windows, you're running those things plus the thing that draws the screen. Whereas in Accordance, you probably use the native built-in stuff that comes in Windows or in Mac. So does BibleWorks, so does Word Search, so does PC Study Bible. Logos wants it to look the exact same on every platform, and so they've made this. They've used this. I don't remember what it's called. It used to be something. They used to use .NET, but then they moved to Mac, and so they had to find something different.
Well, it's still .NET, but they use Mono to translate .NET to the Mac.
Okay, so you know what it is. I can't remember the name of it. Wes, you were wanting to say something. I cut you off trying to finish my thought.
Sorry, Kev. It's I mean, I have a little bit of disagreement that you can buy a cheaper Windows laptop and it'll last just as long and be just as good. The cheaper you get, the lower the margins get, the lower quality components they're using, and the faster they tend to degrade. At least that's been my experience with Windows laptops. My real question is, I'm hearing a terrible echo right now. The real comparison with the Surface Pro isn't an iPad, it's the MacBook Pro. And when you get into the Surface 3, the fairest comparison between another device would be an iPad, although you are correct, it is a hybrid device. Is the experience a fair comparison? Like, what's your guys' experience using the Surface 3 as opposed to using an iPad? I mean, is it as fluid? Is it, how's it work?
Well, where the real value of this device is, and this is part of why you're paying a premium price, is that the value's in the portability of it. You can fold that keyboard up with the Surface and just carry it like a book, which is one reason I love my iPad too. That I can just carry it with me with a keyboard cover on it. But this will do if I want to have full Microsoft Word. I sat down a couple nights ago and when I first had it, and I did the kind of work that I normally do on my other computers. I did it on this just to see if I could, and it worked great for that. So if you're, and I know this is going to be part of our discussion later, as to what kind of computers you use in your church. But if you had a pastor, for instance, a pastor could take this device and go work on a sermon at a Starbucks, have Bible software on here, and have access to those full applications that you might not have you might not have the full applications on an iPad. Great for a student too. Where it's going to be deficient is in, you're not going to want to do heavy video editing, heavy photo processing, or something like that. But for basic tasks, the kind of tasks that most people do, I think it's going to be fine.
So would you run
I think you're right.
on this?
No. You could, but I would say no.
Lightroom? Yeah, I think Lightroom would run. I don't think it's going to be a wonderful experience.
Yeah. Could you try it for me this week?
haven't.
You're really laggy.
I don't understand what you just said. We're talking over each other, so you go ahead and say what you want to say, Wes.
I'm just saying, would you mind testing that out for me this week and running Lightroom on the Surface 3?
Yeah, I will install it. I haven't installed any Adobe products on it yet, just because I wasn't ever planning to run those. But that'd be a good, test just to see how it works. Lightroom doesn't have quite as much. It's not as power hungry as Photoshop is. So I think it would run, but I don't think it would be a great experience. I saw a video from Techno Buffalo, and they installed Premiere and tried to do some video editing on it. And he said that if you were desperate and you needed to do some, like if you were out in the field and wanted to just kind of get your project started, he said it actually ran decent for that. Mm-hmm. He said now he's not going to do a whole lot of extra stuff with it. He's not going to do all his intricate edits with it, but just importing the video in and trimming a little bit here and there, maybe putting a title or something like that. It worked well for him. And so I was actually surprised, and it made me think, I might go for it, but I was kind of holding off. I've got too much on here right now. I've already that 128 fills up quick when you put Bible software on it.
Yeah,
yes,
and,
it does.
I would think though, for a less intensive editor like Camtasia, which we do for a lot of screen recordings, I would think, and I haven't tested it yet, but I would think that something like that would probably be okay on this device.
There's one little photo editor in the Windows store called Photor, F-O-T-O-R, and it's just real dirt simple, next to nothing, and it runs great. Obviously, it's a Windows modern app, and honestly, that's on my Windows machine for most of my product shots. If all I'm trying to do is crop it, fix a little bit of the lighting, and then export it at a certain resolution for the website. That's what I use all the time, and it works. It works great. It runs without any hiccups or problems whatsoever. So I'd recommend that if someone is, using a Windows computer with the Windows Store and they want something real simple. There's also Adobe Photoshop Express for with a modern Windows app version of it in the store, and that works okay as well. So both of those are decent photo editors. I haven't yet gotten a good video editor. I guess you could just download Windows Movie Maker on it, of course, but that's a horrible experience in my opinion. Because I don't think they've even updated that in years, have they?
I don't think so.
So, I'm interested in finding something for simple video editing. I don't really want to run Premiere on it, but I'll try. But, I think one of the problems that I've been having, and that is this pen has been giving me fits. Every so often it'll just quit working, and I have to wait about 20 to 30 seconds. Sometimes I have to hit buttons and start tapping stuff madly to get it to register again. So I don't know if that's a pen problem. I've already unpaired it and repaired it. I'm using the pen that came. I actually had two pens for my Surface Pro 3 because I lost one. So I went about 2 or 3 days trying to find it, thinking as soon as I find it, or as soon as I order one, I'm going to find it. But then I got, I couldn't go any longer, so I had to order one, and guess what? As soon as I bought one, I found it. So I had two, and so I unpaired it from the old and paired it up with the new, and it's causing problems. So I don't know if maybe there's something, a slightly different technology in the newly purchased ones like you've got. I don't know.
Do you think that maybe your battery's low?
I don't think so, but that's a possibility because you'd sort of think that the battery would just kind of, I don't know.
Well, there's no indicator for it, and we talked about the Encore 2 Write a few weeks ago. On my Encore 2 Write, I was using the pen so heavily that after about 2 or 3 weeks, the it just stopped working. You know, and it kind of fizzled. Before that, it would do what you were doing. Then it stopped working, and I replaced the battery, and it worked fine. So I wonder if it's a battery issue.
Well, that could be, I suppose. You know, maybe it was sitting somewhere. This is the one that I lost, and so I found it. Maybe it was sitting somewhere with the pins being, or the buttons being depressed the whole time,
Sure.
and so that ran it down for quite a bit. Or so. I don't know. I just it's sort of frustrating. I tried both pins. I pulled out the one that I had that I've kept with the Surface Pro 3 and tried it as well, and it had the same experience. So I sort of have a feeling it's a radio frequency issue. You mentioned you're having some Wi-Fi issues as well with it, right?
Yeah, there's a conflict with it, and I've got a Logitech ultra thin mouse, the same one that you've got, and there is a conflict between when I'm running that mouse, Wi-Fi will drop to less than half, and I turned it on and turned it off and ran speedtest.net, and I confirmed that. I looked online, and that is an issue, and the solution is to change your Wi-Fi channel, which I can do at home, but I can't do elsewhere. But there are two different Bluetooth channels on that mouse, so I haven't had a chance to do it yet. But yeah, that's the mouse, Kevin, that we both have. And so I don't know if you've tried it with that yet, but that's definitely a problem that I've had, and so I'm going to try to troubleshoot that. Of course, hopefully you don't even need the mouse, that much because of the pin, which I think I mentioned earlier. I've got the red pin. It's very pretty. You can get blue and black, and then the original silver. The trackpad on this device, like all the Surface devices, is kind of useless. It's probably a little bit better than the original ones, but it's not that great.
Yeah, not much better. That's definitely the truth. I just had some pictures of it. The Surface Pro 3 trackpad is actually better, but not a lot better, and that's only because it's slightly larger. So,
Yeah.
I personally just would kind of like to see it. Well, I wish they just left it off, to be honest with you. I guess you need a mouse on occasion, and so maybe that's why they included it. But
well, like yesterday, I ran off without the pin, and I was having problems with the Logitech mouse, and so I actually did use it some yesterday, and it was convenient to have it, but it's not something I'd want to depend on.
Yeah, see, I put it on screen now, and that's awfully tiny. The blue one is the Surface 3. The Surface Pro 3 type cover is the lower one, and they're very dirty. And that's one of my things about the type cover is it gets dirty really easily.
Yeah.
Notice how dirty and dingy that blue one looks. Well, I mean, that's just fresh out of the box. That's with maybe like 2 hours worth of use. So it does get ugly quickly. The good news is it's washable. Simply just a damp cloth, it'll wash off really well.
It's a kind of felt-like material, which is odd.
And then you mentioned that you don't like it up like this. I'm going to freak people out with my camera here. Pulling it off, but you don't like it up like this?
It bounces a lot. I've got it like that at the moment because I've got it propped up higher than normal. But for doing a lot of typing, just laying it flat seems a lot more sturdy.
Yeah, I recommend that you not flip it up like that. The commercials make it seem like that's something cool, and I don't understand why anyone would type on this thing like that, because you're right, it's bouncy and it makes it noisier. It's already a bit noisy.
Right.
Of a keyboard, but, well, you want to say anything final or any questions, Wes, or anything like that?
No, I did a Google search on the pen really quick for you, Kev.
Okay.
Because apparently there are people that are having that problem, and one of the things that people said is they're accidentally installing the batteries backwards. And it will still connect even with the battery backwards.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it the right way. I know that. That's not.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny because the thing will still connect if it's installed backwards.
That is odd that it would still connect. You want to have the negative end of the battery against the spring. That's the key.
Correct. And the battery is only there for the Bluetooth, and the Bluetooth only the only purpose for the Bluetooth on the pen is the purple button on the very top.
Actually, Kevin, there's 3 batteries in here. There's the Quad A battery, which activates the main connection, but there are 2 watch size batteries that are up at the top of this, and that's that's affecting the button at the top, which will trigger it'll trigger the OneNote, for instance. And so, like if you unscrew your pen, see if I can do this real quick. And I don't want to take it completely apart, but this part that's right here, if you unscrew that, you get access to those other two batteries that are in the cap.
Kev, I wonder if those are going bad.
Bluetooth. Well, that's what you're pairing with Bluetooth. The other part, I don't think has to be paired with Bluetooth. Because, for instance, it's the same technology that's on my Acer, and these pins are interchangeable with the Acer, and so I could take this without even pairing it and use it on the Acer just from the regular Quad A battery that's in there.
Right, because it's an active stylus like that, yeah.
Oops.
Well, I will, check on that, because if it's just a simple battery issue, I can fix that. I dropped my battery. All right, well, this isn't, all about Surface, so let's, we can sort of move on from that. I just think it's an interesting piece of technology. I really like it, to be honest with you.
I do too.
You were asking Wes about the app situation and the comparison to an iPad. I want to answer that before we move on.
Or just the experience of using it. That's all.
Well, I guess the reason I brought up apps is the thing about what makes the iPad is the apps. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece of hardware. But, get yourself a slab of glass and put some battery in it and connect it with Wi-Fi, and that's, that describes nearly every tablet out there, right? Now, there's some idiosyncrasies here and there, some design quality. Yes, Apple likes to make things prettier than other companies do. That's neither here nor there as far as I'm concerned. I want function over form. It's the apps. It's all about the apps. And the big thing about iOS in the beginning was, they had a huge lead over Android. I would say that their lead is, it's like neck and neck now. But both sides have an enormous lead over Windows Store apps. Right. The Windows Store apps are really just not even close. For example, we talk Bible software, and you all know that my number one Bible tool is Logos, and then Word Search is my second. Word Search, they don't even have a modern UI app. Logos used to, and everybody complained about it. Their solution was to just pull it. That left us with nothing. And
right.
That was the dumbest solution to the problem. Now they still have the Verso app, or Verso, or however you say that, Vyrso, the weirdest name in the world. I don't know where that comes from. Maybe you know, but that's still there. But it's just a book reader, okay, and it's still very behind. They haven't developed it at all. And then they said, all right, if you really want it, then we'll put it on Prepub. Well, Prepub is their way of saying it's sort of like crowdfunding. If enough people promise to pay us, then we'll make a Windows app. And it's going nowhere. No one is interested in it. And the reason is, 98% of Windows Logos users just want to install the Logos Bible software. The problem is, as these lower power systems become popular, they just don't run Logos very well because it's such a chugging machine. So, that's an issue. Well, think about also Amazon. I'm a heavy book reader, and the Amazon app, just highlighting text in the Amazon Windows Store app is kind of an annoyance. It just doesn't do well. And so there's just a lot of different issues that, there just aren't as many good apps. And so I'm writing an article right now, X number of essential apps for the Surface 3, and I'm struggling to find good apps to install on it. If this initiative that Microsoft has promised at their Build conference last week, where they said, we're going to make it really easy for Android and iOS developers to port their apps over. Well, number one, will that really work? And number two, will the Android and iOS developers even bother? Okay, and so that would be interesting. I don't know, Accordance, if you, Rick, have had any discussions about that. Do you have any interest in going in that direction? I'd love to hear La Rosa address that issue. Is Olive Tree even thinking about doing that? If that happens, then this tablet will replace my iPad. If a lot of iOS developers or Android developers or both start porting their apps to make it so that Windows Store apps are just as good or just as prevalent as the others, I will get rid of my iPad or give it away and probably never, hardly ever use it again unless Apple does something really drastically special over the next year or so.
It sounds interesting. I mean, but it will run standard Windows apps too. So.
Great big silence and nothing. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, well, I do have one question or one request for both of you. You have to see if it runs Minecraft.
Okay, I'm sure it will. I would think it would run Minecraft.
Actually, Minecraft's kind of a struggle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I want to know what settings work on it.
Well, I'll maybe look into that. I don't know if I want to.
Minecraft and Lightroom. That's all I want to know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is an interesting discussion. Would you suggest, Rick, buying a Surface 3 for your church?
Yeah, I mean, it's according to, again, what you're going to use it with in the church. If you're talking about, as the church secretary's machine, no. But if you're talking about, something for the pastor to be able to take to meetings, take to Starbucks to work on a sermon or something like that, sure. I think it'd be great for. It's a great portable computer. Again, its value is in its portability.
Why not the church secretary machine?
Well, if I say the church secretary machine, if you're going to do that, you're going to need to get the dock and a larger monitor, and probably another keyboard. Just for the kind of work that that I've always seen church secretaries doing. I would hate to saddle a church secretary with a small screen that she or he, I guess, has to look at all day, and with the type cover keyboard, for something sitting at a desk all day, you probably have better options out there. But if you want something to take with you, to put in your hand like a book, I think it's great for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would think it would also be great for preaching from. Kevin, do you preach from any kind of computer, or do you use what do you do?
Yeah, I write my sermons in Word, and I write them in such a way that I can easily preach from those notes. And I used it Wednesday night as for my notes, and it worked great. Absolutely no issue whatsoever. In fact, it was easier than using my iPad because Word, you open Word and recent documents are right there. Now, the iPad version of Word does that as well. So when I say it worked easier, really that's not.
But it was a bigger screen than an iPad.
It worked just as well.
Yeah.
As it. No, it's about the same size, isn't it? An iPad screen and the Surface 3.
This is 10.8, I think. So I don't know. It feels bigger. Maybe the bezel's bigger.
Not by much, but it is bigger.
Yeah.
Well, the aspect ratio is different. One's 4:3, and the other one's 3:2. So it's a slightly different aspect ratio.
Yeah.
I want my words big, and so I keep it in landscape mode, and make the document so that it's the margins that are at the very edge instead of the page. So I write it like that. You mentioned, would you put it on the secretary's desk? With a dock and a decent monitor and a decent keyboard and an external hard drive all hooked up. Yeah, I would. I think that would work great. She could use that very well and then pop it out of the dock and take it home with her.
Although there might be less expensive solutions.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Well,
it would not be the best option. Honestly, this Think server that I've got, $200. Buy a hard drive and get a copy of Windows and slap it on there, or get a free copy of Linux. And man, you are, for $400, you've got a screaming machine. Yeah. And then all you need is a keyboard, a mouse, and a monitor, and that's an outstanding machine. So if we're sort of saying it would work for the secretary, but it wouldn't be the best solution. It would work for the preacher on the go.
Yeah.
If he got a dock, he could replace his desktop system, his laptop, and his tablet with this. I don't think I would want to use it to run the church presentation. Although if you're doing that wireless, you could do it. Hook up a Microsoft display adapter to your projectors and run the presentation MediaShout. I haven't installed MediaShout on it, and I don't think I plan to.
Well, it'd be interesting, though. It'd be interesting to know what some of the different programs like MediaShout, how they would run on this. And I have no idea.
MediaShout's got such draconian.
Did we lose Kevin?
We lost Kevin.
He has
been laggy. Yeah. Oh, there he goes.
Okay.
We didn't lose the Hangout, though, which is really
weird.
Okay.
Oh,
here he comes back. You're back.
Just edit that part out.
Yeah, MediaShout got mad at me. They must have
evidently
about them.
Last week we complained about Google. This week it's MediaShout.
Yeah, we're having trouble with our connection here at the church. The whole neighborhood is just in really bad shape. So, are you not seeing my video at all?
No, I can.
No, we are. You're very laggy today, though, Kev.
Okay. The charter communications in our neighborhood has gotten very bad, and it's very frustrating. So anyway, it says opening. What I was saying was, MediaShout has such draconian DRM built in, and if you install it on a second computer, then they send out a military detachment to overtake your entire house, and you have to promise to give them your firstborn, and it's really ridiculous how bad it is. They have a program that plugs into Word to PowerPoint, and I installed it on my Surface Pro 3, and I said, I'd like to uninstall this and put it on my desktop. They said, that's fine, just pay us more money and we'll let you do that. I said, I'm not paying you more money. I've already paid twice, once for MediaShout and once for this program. So that's the only way to do it. It's now tied to that machine forever. And I complained and complained and complained, and I said, that's fine, I'll just, can you give me a quote on that for my article? And suddenly they weren't as mean about it.
I bet.
And were willing to let me do it. I hate having to do that sort of thing. Anyway, what computer, though, let's buy a computer for 3 different people. Let's buy a computer for the youth minister. Let's buy a computer for the church secretary. And let's buy a computer for the worship team. All right. Which one you want to go with first, Wes? We'll let you pick first.
Well, you just bankrupted my church. So we have, this is actually a good thing for me right now because we have an aging Mac Mini in our church office that's really really old now. So it's time for us to upgrade. And we have a MacBook Air from a year and a half ago that's running our lyrics in the sanctuary. And really what I'm eventually going to do is retire the Mac Mini. I might turn that into a server, and I'm going to put the MacBook Air in the church office and plug it into the monitor and the keyboard and the mouse with an external hard drive and say, here's your computer, because you can just close the lid and it runs it in headless mode. And for what we don't even have someone comes into the office every day. For what the secretary does, that's just fine because she can open up we do it on our bulletin through OpenOffice, so she can just open up OpenOffice on that and make the bulletin and print it out, and life is happy. And I get the portability, but I have the setup, and I think that's one of the interesting things with the Surface. As we talk about the cost of putting a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse and things, but man, I mean, you open up a closet anywhere and these things tumble out. The monitor might be the one thing, but even then, just a little display adapter and boom, it's in there and you can move it different places. And to me, I'm getting the use out of it that would justify the cost of it. I don't know if right now I could justify buying a big computer. When we threw this thing out, I am almost to the point now, Kevin, where I'm thinking for a church office setup that unless you're running some specific software, like a church membership software that's not done online or something like that, a Chromebook for a church office secretary would work fine. If you're on Google already, it would work pretty much just fine. Printing the bulletin is where I would be a little bit confused, and I need to explore a little bit more for that. But
so you're actually for the church office, you're recommending, with the caveats that you mentioned, a Chromebook.
Yeah.
Okay. How about another option would be a Chrome box? A Chrome box like the
that would work. Yeah, yeah, that would be fine too.
HP and Asus, and there's also one that's an all-in-one system. I think it is from who was that has it? It's got a monitor, and the Chrome is built in that. The Asus, what's it called? There's a Chromebook on an HDMI stick coming out from Asus.
Yeah.
That's going to be under $100, and that would actually be very interesting. And I'm probably going to get one when it comes out because I'm now without a
Chrome Bit.
What's that?
It's called the Chrome Bit.
Chrome Bit.
I want to get one of those. That's what I'm going to get. I'll get one of those eventually.
Yeah, that would be an interesting solution. My only thing, when you talk about printing, if someone is really interested in these, a Chromebook is an expensive Chromebook is the Chromebook Pixel for $1,300. Come down to the real world, and an expensive Chromebook is $400. I mean, that's like a high-end, top-of-the-line Chromebook. Yep. You can go up to $500 if you get an Intel Core i5 or i7, which is ridiculous. You don't need that. But I love Chromebooks, and I think they're a great technology. I sold mine before I got the Surface. I had the HP Chromebook 14, which is still, I think, the best. If they put a 1080p screen on the original HP Chromebook 14, that would be the best Chromebook available. Unfortunately, they put a 1080p screen on the Chromebook 14, but then handcuffed it with a slower processor, which was
it can't drive the pixels.
Yeah, and so it works, but it's not a beautiful, wonderful experience like it used to be. But your printing is fine. It's really not an issue so long as you have the right printer. If you get a printer that has Cloud Print built in, or if you have another computer that can serve the printer to Google Cloud Print, then it works. I've actually found that I've got my printer behind me here, and it is hooked up to my Windows computer here at the desk, the church, and I've had to print things that I knew I was going to need at church, and instead of printing them at home and carrying them over, I just sent it through Google Cloud Print and printed them here, and when I got in the office, there they were. So that way, because I have a terrible habit of forgetting things. So a Chromebook, that's interesting, for the church secretary. I'm going to recommend for the church secretary, I think, honestly, go out and get the cheapest computer that you believe will last, and make certain that it's got good technical support, because unless your secretary is a very unusual secretary, she probably is going to have to ask questions about how to use this or that, and so make sure you get her some good technical support. That way you don't have to do it all the time, but if you can, you will. And so really, I mean, that's the easiest one, isn't it? Rick, what do you think? Isn't that the easiest fix, just getting anything that's cheap and simple?
Yes and no, because I always say you get a little bit of what you pay for, and this wasn't in a church secretary space, but it was at an institution where I often teach. The secretary there, I was there with my iPad, and I needed a document printed, and so it was a PDF, and so I emailed that to her, and so she could then print that and I could make copies. Well, she had your typical institutionally purchased low-end computer, where they may have taken bids, I don't know, but very low RAM, very low processor, and that, by the time that the email came to her, and then she was trying to pull it up in Adobe Reader, the document that I'd sent, and she's just turning to me and talking, the whole process took probably at least 5 minutes for her to receive that, to pull it up, to print it, whereas, on my computer, it's just like that. And so the problem with the very low-end computers, although you save money, I don't know if you save money in the long run because of productivity. And that's one of those things where you have to just watch. You have to watch people work. Are they waiting for the computer in order to get the work done? And if that's the case, you could probably spend a little bit more money on a computer, get something that's a little bit faster, a little bit more powerful, and be better off in the long run financially.
Yeah, that's our problem in the region office, is that we have a bunch of those institutionally purchased computers because they don't do all that much. And the one executive assistant, when we send PDFs to be printed out for large print jobs, just spooling a PDF to the printer, which is fine, and so many other people's environment takes forever. And it's because they got her a low-end computer.
Yeah.
And she's been stuck with it now for they're going to replace it fairly soon, but we lost a lot of productivity in the years that we were using this thing.
And it doesn't mean that you have to get real high end necessarily for those kinds of tasks, but maybe not the lowest end. And unfortunately, a lot of our churches, because of limited budgets, will get the very least expensive computer, saying, "Well, that'll do the job for me," and it often doesn't do it that well.
All right. So what I hear you're saying is you're saying don't get the cheapest, but get the next level up.
Yes, I would think so. And for our church secretary, I doubt she's going to see this, but if she were to, she could correct me if I'm wrong. I'm thinking that she still does a lot of layout for like the newsletter and things like that. I think she uses Microsoft Publisher, and that would preclude getting something like a Chromebook because you're not going to be able to do those kinds of tasks. And I assume she's still using that, but if she is, she's been using it a long time. She's very good at it.
What about these?
We had a solution for that. We got rid of it.
One of those for the desktop at the church.
I'm sorry. Say that again, Kevin.
One of these all-in-one computers. Would you recommend?
Oh yeah.
That?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I think we did get one for our receptionist that's out front. I think that's what she's using now.
Or what about a desktop versus laptop for the secretary?
Well, you don't want to put this. I don't think it's fair to put the secretary in a position where the secretary takes home work. So, you might want to keep away from a laptop for a secretary just out of fairness, because I know that we've got very hardworking people at the church, and if you give them an excuse, they'll take that home. But that's really above and beyond sometimes.
Yeah, I would get a laptop if you want to be able to use the computer in the church in different locations. Like in our setting, where I want to be able to use it for lyrics in the sanctuary and use it to lay out the bulletin. I would be happy with a laptop for that. But Rick's right. They don't have to take the stuff home. So,
well, I could see if you have a secretary that likes the idea of working from home, though. Like, I think we had a discussion about this a while back. What the concept of the church office is that an old-fashioned idea that is really no longer needed. And in certain circumstances, for example, if you say, look, we want someone at the church office all the time in case someone wants to drop in, but the pastor, we want you there on Monday because that's his day off, and we want you there on Friday because he doesn't plan to be there much. But Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he's going to be there every morning, studying. And so if you want to work from home, do that. We'll forward the phones to your house, and that way, if you want, you can work in your pajamas and get work done at home in the mornings, and then just come in later. But again, I think you're right. I think maybe I would amend my comments earlier to say, you don't want the cheapest piece of junk that's going to cause frustrations. So I would say, a decent desktop. I agree. I don't think a laptop is necessary. A decent desktop that's expandable and upgradable is what you want, because as technology goes on, you might be buying this for her or for him. We're saying her. We don't want to be sexist. Males can do secretarial work too.
Right.
You want something, in 3 years you may have the same machine, but maybe it's starting to slow down and you want to add some RAM or put double the hard drive space or something. Get something that's expandable would be a good idea. Which, again, I know it's crazy. I keep saying this, but let me freak everyone out again. But this little Think server, it was $230 on Amazon, and it's incredibly fast. I'm running 2 large monitors from the built-in graphics card in it. It had 2 DVI, full-size DVI out ports on it.
Holy smokes.
And I put a SSD in there, a 256 gigabyte SSD. I installed Windows 10 on it because I bought it about the time that they had released the technical preview. It works great. It's awesome. So if you go search for that ThinkServer TS140, you don't have to run it as a server. It works as a desktop as well, and that makes a great desktop system. It had a DVD drive in it, but I had a DVD burner sitting around, so I put it in there because this was just a reader, but I don't use it. But all right, so let's get one. All right, let's get one for the church. Wes, you're going to have to. It sounds like you're probably going to have to pick something up for the sanctuary soon. So let's start with you. What would you get? What are you dreaming?
Well, I mean, we have our MacBook Air, and that's exactly what we use, and I love it.
Say that?
We had an older. We have a MacBook Air, and that's what we use, and it just works. You know, it doesn't need a whole lot of storage. We're not running it for everything. It does one device or one thing, and it does it extremely well. And I like the idea of a laptop for the sanctuary because you can put it away and lock it up and it doesn't go anywhere. What's really cool with the way that we have it set up right now is that the MacBook Air, you leave it on sleep mode and we throw it in the closet and it's still waking up to do the Apple's power nap. So we update the lyrics using BitTorrent Sync. So the guy's at home and he updates the lyrics and it syncs the database and the playlist back over. So when I go in on Sunday morning and open it up, it's like, yep, we updated it yesterday and we're all set. So for me, that's part of the cool thing is that power nap feature really works for that because there's no thinking in the morning, which is very good. And that to me that worked really well. But I think a good going up to a mid-range powered laptop for sanctuary driving things because you are driving two different screens oftentimes. I think that's a really good solution for the sanctuary.
Rick, what do you think?
Well, in our sanctuary, we have the soundboard in the back, and we've got an iMac in place there that runs very well. And I was trying to think of the software that we use for worship. It's not Media Shout. It's not Proclaim. What's the other one?
ProPresenter, SongShow Plus.
It's ProPresenter. That's what it is. And so ProPresenter is running on the iMac, and it's in a dual screen setup in the sense that the second screen is the projector, which is tied into the ceiling, and that works very well. And of course, I'm not back there. I get a call occasionally if the Mac won't work right, but I know that they use a separate Toshiba laptop, which I think they use to control the lights, and I don't know why they couldn't do that with a Mac unless it's a Windows particular program. But again, I don't know, and if I investigated it, I'd probably own it, so I don't want to. But I do know that setup has worked very well, and you talk about being able to lock it up. They've got the security chain on it. You have to tear it up for it to go anywhere. It works really well. The only thing that might be more beneficial is perhaps one of these all-in-ones that has the touch screen on it, because I could see where being able to just directly put your hands on the screen to control some of that might be advantageous. But I don't know. I don't run any of it. But the iMac works really well. I'm sure that there are a lot of setups that are similar to what we're doing.
Well, let me be the lone dissenter in this one, in that not all churches are going to need this, but some churches are going to need a very powerful system. And here's why. If you're doing the presentation graphics and you use video, and then you're also recording and using that computer to do some of the recording, and then a lot of churches actually do have their computer set up with sound so that they can manipulate sound and lighting, and then in addition to that they might even be streaming, and they're trying to do that all from one machine. First of all, I would say that's probably not a good idea. You maybe want to sound, record the sound and control the sound with a separate machine.
Sure.
That's what we do. We have one that it's using it to stream, and since the video and audio are coming into that, we pull up Audacity and record the audio as well that we use to make our CDs that we give to shut-ins. And and that has a big hard drive on it. You said you don't need a lot of hard drive, but if you're recording a lot of video and you want to archive that and keep it, so we do have a big hard drive on that. I think it's like 2 terabytes.
Yeah, it's your use case.
Yeah, and then the presentation machine, I've found that if you skimp on that, your video is not going to perform very well if you try to play some video on it. And so we actually, that's why we got this Think server to begin with, but we put a big beefy audio card in it and put plenty of RAM in it. And we did that because, you know, servers usually have a little more power than that, and this was a cheap one. So I would recommend that if I would say don't skimp on the power of the processor and the video for your presentation system. And I also think that and I know neither of you guys are going to like this much, but I think that a Windows machine, you're going to get more bang for the buck. And the Windows presentation software that's available is heads and above far ahead of the Mac stuff that's out there. You're going to have a lot more options for worship presentation software on Windows than you are for Mac. The two that I've used that are Mac-based just don't work as well as their same Windows counterparts. And one of the issues you have is most of these worship presentation software people started coding for Windows, and so they're trying to get up to speed on the Mac side, and so their Mac coding skills I just don't think are as good.
That may change in 10 years.
That may change in 10 years, but right now that's the way it is. If you're buying one to use next Sunday, you know, that's an issue that you're going to have. And then the next thing I would say for the church presentation computer is you want something quiet, fairly quiet, if you're close to the people in the sanctuary. And so, you know, I said get power, but then I said quiet. That's a difficult thing sometimes to do. So
that's why we're on the MacBook Air.
Well, but that, again, that's fine for the worship presentation software you're using. But the MacBook Air is probably not going to handle a lot of the other kinds and do video as well.
Yeah, you guys live in a different world than I do. I mean, we do lyrics and video. I record the sermon using my iPhone, which is just plugged into it, and you know we don't have a digital soundboard. We're just running off an old analog soundboard, and things are in the back. So and I think that's the thing, is that the needs of the churches are very different. Like Rick was talking about controlling lights from a computer, which is like that's another universe from where I live. Right. You know, we're very traditional sanctuary with very old lights, and you know we have integrated technology to the point where it's very transparent. But you know we're not in the world of having like a semi-professional IT team and all that sort of stuff. So you know, for these churches that just need something, they want to do one thing and do it well. That's where I'm talking to. Whereas you're talking much more of a multifunction, and I think Rick's even above that. And so that's where the difference is. What's your use case? So my use case wouldn't work for you, and it certainly wouldn't work for Rick. But you know, Rick's setup would be massive overkill for where I am.
Right. That's an important thing. Now let's talk about the preacher, and I want to start with this one. I think if a church is going to buy the pastor a computer, it should be mobile. You want that mobile system.
Oh yeah.
Because the pastor does want to be able to work from home. He does want to be able to take it on the road with him and still be productive. He does want to be able to go to the hospital at 9 o'clock and pay a visit on the other side of town, and then have a meeting on that same side of town and not have to come back to the office, you know, to do some writing. And so, excuse me. And he also wants, if he's like a lot of us, if he's using worship software, Bible study software. Bible study software has special needs. Sometimes you're going to need more storage but less power than you would otherwise, depending on the program that you're using. And so, if you're a Logos user, you want to get a powerful system that's got good graphics. It's got a fast hard drive, so get an SSD for them. Plenty of RAM, at least 4 gigabytes of RAM, and he'll be a lot happier with that. So So get him, you're going to have to spend some money on this computer if he's a Logos guy. Now, if he's an Accordance guy, then his hardware needs aren't going to be as great, but you're still going to need a lot of storage, aren't you?
I mean, not necessarily.
Moderate.
Probably, according to what size of maybe package he has, but anywhere from 10 to 20 gigabytes probably for the average person of space for Accordance.
So don't get him one of these 32 gigabyte HP Stream notebooks.
I don't recommend that for anyone.
Yeah. I bought two, one for my son and one for my wife, and they're both very happy with them.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about, but for someone like a pastor who's professional, it's not enough drive space.
No, that's the whole issue, drive space. And even Michael installs my copy of Logos on it, and don't tell anybody. And he has an external hard drive that he has Velcroed to the lid.
Yeah, I've seen people do that. Yeah,
leave it on all the time. So, but would you agree? What I said basically is don't skimp on low end system, because he wants to be productive and useful. And by the way, a lot of pastors are starting to include multimedia in their sermons and things like that, or a lot of us are shooting video and uploading it to the church website, especially if you're a Lone Ranger kind of pastor like I am, where you don't have a media team. I am the church's webmaster, and I am the church's social media director, and all that kind of stuff. And there's more of us out there than there are, like the big church pastors that have a full-time media guy.
Well,
anything you've got like to add to that?
The other debate is whether or not you let the church buy it or you buy it yourself. Back in the 90s, I was associate pastor at this church, and the computer that they gave me to use that belonged to the church was so lousy. It was kind of a hand-me-down. It was low end to begin with. That I said, look, I'm going to just use my own funds. It'll be my computer. It'll be mine. And I've done that elsewhere too. I've taught Bible, and that was 5 years as a chaplain at a Christian secondary school, and brought in my own computer. I asked them from the beginning, can I bring in my own computer? And I did that, and I had control over it that way. And even when I started teaching college classes, there were some university computers that we could use, but I just really preferred to use mine, and still do. There's a computer in every classroom, and a lot of people just come in with a thumb drive. I come in with my laptop, and plug that in. For me, I've always preferred to buy my own, as opposed to letting a church or an institution buy it for me. And even when they did that, and in some cases, there was like an insistence. Well, there has to be one for this classroom or whatever. Okay, that's fine. I just never used it.
I'm with you on that. My church has bought me one computer, my first Mac, and God bless them, because they sacrificed in order to let me make that switch. Up until that point, I'd always bought my own computer. Since that time, my wife and I are in a little bit of a better financial situation and all that stuff. And rather than keep going back to the church or to ABC and J and say, you know what, I need this now, we've purchased our own. What I have done is that I've asked the church at a couple points to be like, look, I have this much and I have this much in reimbursements. Can I apply this for this? And both times that I've had to do that, they've given me permission. And then it's mine. And there's no. So when I'm putting like my photos on it, because that's I need a computer to do photo management. I don't have this conundrum of whether or not I'm putting the software on it, but this is not my computer.
Right.
So I get rid of that whole issue, and to me that works better.
I do think that the person that is making the decision about what to buy and whether to buy it, if the church insists on buying it for him or the person, they should definitely consult. What are your needs outside of just church life? Because this is very likely going to be a system that they're going to use for more than just one thing. Because I don't want to have to. All right, here's my church laptop. All right, here's my personal laptop.
Right.
That'll get annoying.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then, there's the old question of financial good stewardship, and I like a Mac computer. That's, I have a MacBook Pro. To get the quality of hardware that you get in a MacBook, you're going to spend just as much on a Windows PC laptop as you are on a MacBook. The question that I have is, and I know I'm talking to two Mac guys, so I'm almost certain I know what the answer is going to be, but if a church wants to get their pastor a computer, but they maybe are a little strapped, is it really a wise thing to spend, at least $900 on a MacBook when they could get something that will last him for a couple of years? Sure, it's not that beautiful system, and it's not, but it'll run just as well, for $500 or $600.
Well, you get whatever the pastor's comfortable with.
Yeah, I would ultimately agree with that, and also I really, whether it's a high-end Windows machine or a high-end Mac, I do think you get what you pay for to a certain extent. And our music minister at our church has a 2008 MacBook Pro, so we're talking about a computer that's running up on 7 years now, and his hard drive is starting to go bad. It's a spinning hard drive. It's not an SSD. And he told me, he said, "Can you order me a new hard drive and maybe add some RAM to it?" It had 4. We're going to take it up to 8. He's not interested in getting a new computer, and he said his funds really aren't there. But that machine that he invested in heavily back in 2008, he's still going to be able to continue to use and even use the current software that's out on it. And that's because he invested in it back then, and he can still continue to use it as long as he wants to, really.
Yeah, you get all the laptop you can afford, because it's different than buying a desktop. These days even desktops you can't upgrade anymore. But a laptop is really hard, especially if you get a Mac, because the repairability and upgradability of a MacBook is nearly next to nothing. Of
course, the same thing with the Surface.
Yeah, yes. Exactly right. I would suggest that I'm maybe the lone one who will defend Windows. I think that a Windows PC, I've got a Sony Vaio that my dad bought 10 years ago, not 10 years ago, 8, 9 years ago, something like that. It originally had Windows, I think Vista on it, and we upgraded it to Windows 7. And my boys use that computer for years, and it still functions today. Yeah, it's a little slow, but I slapped put a x86 Android USB stick into it, and it booted right up, and it works great using Android laptop. And so, this idea that a Mac is the only thing that's going to last 8 or 9 years, I don't buy that. I'm sorry, I don't.
Well, I wasn't suggesting that. That's why I said Windows or Mac. If you get a good one and you pay for it, you're going to get your money's worth out of it later.
Okay.
That's my thing, Kevin, is with those low-end, especially if you're going to get a low-end Windows laptop. And I know you've had a different experience, but man, every time I purchase one of those things, the battery is shot within 8 months. To where I go from 4 hours, I mean, this is back like 2005, but when I go from like 4 hours of battery life to 20 minutes of battery life, and it's not registering correctly, and that's been my constant experience. And I know batteries have improved, but when you go to those lower end components, they degrade faster. And so if you're going to just get something of quality, so until this Lenovo problem, that's what I always said. I would tell people, if you want a traditional Windows laptop, Lenovo's got the build quality, and of course now they're spying on you. So that's always the problem. So you've suggested in the past, go to the Microsoft store to where you can get the signature editions, because they're going to be, when you buy one of those, the specs will be there. You're going to pay a little bit more, but you can be reasonably certain, because Microsoft doesn't want their name on crappy components, that this is going to be a well-built machine. And that's all I'm saying for that. Get whatever the pastor's comfortable with, but when you buy that, you do a little bit of diligence to make sure that you're not just going on price point and numbers, because we all know those things are so ridiculous. but make sure you're buying a reasonably well-built and well-crafted machine.
Yeah, I think you are somewhat comparing, Windows computing from 2007 to computing today in a lot of things. And you've repeatedly mentioned the Windows registry. That's not an issue anymore. It really is not a problem. It doesn't grow to ridiculous amounts and make it slow down anymore. They've fixed that. That's not an issue. Batteries on Windows, they're using the same battery technology for the most part in all these systems. They're all supplied from some Chinese or Korean company, and so that's not
Sure,
that's not an issue. I didn't hear what you said.
Power management is usually handled differently between Windows and Mac, and Windows traditionally has not been really great at that. And Windows 10 will improve it, but they're still not.
You're right, but that's not an issue anymore. It's operating system. You're getting the same thing on both sides, and this is coming from a guy who uses both almost every day.
Mm-hmm.
And Windows versus Mac, the debate, it's almost the same thing today. There really isn't.
I don't know. I don't know. I could get into the nitpicky stuff, and we don't have time. But I use both, but I still prefer Mac over Windows.
Well, that's fine, and that's a personal preference.
I really don't care. It's whatever
I'm talking
it's
about.
Whatever you prefer.
This is better because
I can
you don't have the
time.
all the old complaints about Windows just really aren't valid anymore.
I've got new complaints, but I won't go into it right now.
Okay, well,
but Kevin, what I'm talking about is when you compare component quality versus component quality. So if you're going to pay for a Windows computer that is using the same quality components as a Mac, you might be paying a little bit less because you are paying for the Mac name, and everybody knows Apple does that, but you're still going to be within the ballpark of a comparatively spec'd out Mac machine. Right, and when you bump it down to a $400 Windows laptop to where their margins are like 4%, you know that the quality of the components they're using are not there because they have to make money off of this thing.
You're right, but that's true about everything in the world, not just computers.
Right, but that's all I'm saying is get what the pastor wants.
Here's the question, guys. The question is, what's good enough? And I'm saying that anymore. And again, I was full blown Mac is it. You shouldn't. I'm going to go Mac, and I'm never going back. But I just don't see it anymore. I just don't think Mac is heads and above better than everybody else anymore. I just don't think it's true anymore.
I can make the case for it.
Honestly, I've had just as many problems out of my Mac systems than I've had out of the Windows systems that I've bought in the last few years. There's no difference. They behave very similarly.
You're just talking about preference.
Run just as well. They have just as good a quality. Dollar for dollar, it's the same. And so if you're sitting there in Windows and you think, man, I wish I had a Mac because it's so much better than what I've got. Yeah, maybe not. It's not that much better, and
right. But I don't think you're hearing me here. All I'm saying is,
I don't think you're hearing me either. We should go ahead and
go
this
with what the pastor is comfortable with. If the pastor is comfortable with the Mac, get a reasonably spec'd Mac. If the pastor is comfortable with the Windows, get a reasonably spec'd Windows. Whatever's good enough is what. Right. Whatever's good enough, because that's the question, is what matches the pastor's expectations and needs to use the tool. If you're going with Windows, though, you can't just go price. You have to go with a reasonably spec'd and reasonably quality build. So I'm saying, go to the Windows store and pay the little bit of an extra money in order to get that device, because if they're happy with that, they're happy with that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's all it comes to.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to solve this debate today because it's been raging for 20 years, and it'll rage for another 20 years so long as both companies survive. And the way it looks, Microsoft has rejuvenated itself, and I think they will survive for many years to come. But it is 10:15. We've been on here a lot longer than I think we've ever been on a Theotek podcast, and that's because we hit our hot button issue in the last 10 minutes here. So we really appreciate it if you're still with us, and we really appreciate you listening. I hope that you'll subscribe to our YouTube channel or the audio version of this over at our website. But we'll sign off. We're looking forward to next week. If you're a BibleWorks user or interested in new BibleWorks 10, we believe we're going to be having a BibleWorks guru on to talk with us about that. And then 2 weeks from today is going to be really good. I really hope that you'll plan to listen. I don't know how to say his name, but a person that I've become acquainted with, I think his name is Tuan Dam. He's a Vietnamese man who owns a business that caters to medical supply, but he's branched out into some technology stuff. He's just a great Christian brother who is using his technology to support the kingdom of God, and that's what I love about it. We're going to hear his story about what he does, and the great little, I don't have it with me because I don't have my Surface Pro 3, the great little pen holder, I got it from him, and I said it was so good Microsoft should just buy its company and include it in every future Surface Pro 3 or Surface because it's the perfect solution for holding onto the pen instead of that ridiculous, stupid little loop that they made. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So thanks for watching, guys. We're going to sign off.
See ya.